everyone. Sorry about late arrival. I hope you're all right. Let's continue our topic. Everybody remembers what was the topic? Hi, everyone. Into the minefield. Exactly, Nicole. That's what we were doing today. What we did last week also. I think everybody remembers this position. Now you could see that the minefield, exactly, Mecha Mortis. We say minefield simply because pawn endgames are very complex, right? Only by calculation we can really get a grip on them. Unlike other endgames where it can be a little more, what can I say, plausible to look for patterns and the rook behind the passed pawns, principles like that, right? Put your pawns on the same color as put the pawns on the opposite color as your bishop, you would say, for instance, things like that. Fix the pawns on your opponent's, the color of their bishop, and their pawns, yeah. Anyway, I think you see what I mean. So in this game, we were looking at Carlsen versus Firouzja, right? And the question here was, what should Firouzja play? So should I bring up this again? I think I will, right? I think we will bring up this again. I think it was something like this. I'll try to remember the moves. I think it was something like this. You get 30 seconds because we did this last time, right? Okay, so yeah, please don't play rook b8. That's depressing, no? Exactly. Yeah, why would you play rook b8, by the way? Isn't that like very... You understand that the pawns are going... we're sitting with the black pieces, right? The white pawns are on f5 and h5 and so on. So yeah, perfect, Ararat. I think that's even better, your move. That apple, tricky windmill, chess or Tsui random. Yeah, it was just me who brought the rook to h1 in the very end, but no problem. Yeah, chess crusher. If you play like that, chess crusher, I will play rook g7 check. You should probably not allow that. So please go ahead, Ararat. I'm pretty sure that your variation is very powerful also. Rook b1, we stay in the safer. We stay in the safer rook endgame, right? White would take the pawn, and before anything else, yeah, we certainly don't give the check now, and the king can hide, right? And as I told you last time, f and h can often be drawn. F and h is often drawn, but the defender's king must not be cut off along the 7th rank, right? That's very important. I think we talked about this briefly. So that's why I think Ararat played king g7. Okay, I went rook check. We don't let white's king get any closer, and we stay closer to the more dangerous pawn, the f pawn, right? So I think here I played h6, and now I have the threat of rook g7. Exactly. Please don't play rook h1 here. It's a nice principle, rook behind the passed pawns, as we were saying, but in that case, white might get a chance to play something like... Did we talk about this last time, or it did not work? We talked about it, right? But I can't seem to remember it. It was okay maybe to play like that. Or it was rook f6. Anyone remembers what was... I'm relying on you guys. I don't seem to remember myself. Maybe it was okay also. It just seems unnecessary to allow this now. But maybe it was okay. If you play this just for fun, if you play that, would that make any difference? Probably not, right? No difference, no? So yeah, probably there is no difference. But I like, of course, more the move rook check first, because we kick away white's king. And now you could play rook h1, or you could play like Ararat said. We could just continue giving the checks in the back, and black will make a draw. In the game, unfortunately, Firouzja with the black pieces took on d6 instead. And then this was quite easy for you guys. So should we do this again, maybe? We will do it again, all right? We will do it again, just for fun. There were different move orders, right, leading to the right solution. So you will have to be a little lucky there. Please go to light square first. Once you're in the process of losing a tempo, do me a favor and go to light square, okay? Oh, you went up with the king already there? Oh, maybe, yeah, everything works, right, in that case. John Sam, you played like I thought. But okay. So did Tricky Windmill. Yeah, new user, I think. Tricky Windmill. Interesting chessable username. So many ways win, of course, but there is only one winning idea, which Carson indeed used in the game. Brian, you also played like I was thinking. That apple, that's okay also, but I go king f8, right? And you have to triangulate again. So only by triangulation we can make this work. John Sam, please go ahead. And please chess out, lower your hand if possible. No, you don't need to raise your hand all the time. Okay? So we can win in different move orders, but the fastest one here, if king f7, of course, king f5. So black tries to wait, but white can now win by triangulation. We said that. Oh, no problem, chess out. So triangulation makes sense when the opponent can't triangulate them, right? So black cannot triangulate. I need one more rank for that, but I can't do that. I can only move like horizontal way, right? But white can triangulate. Yeah, please continue, John Sam. Exactly, and this is why white is after. They move the king in a triangle, and now black lost the vital tempo. So, yeah, interesting. There was a name for this position. I didn't know that. The cellular position says Tricky Windmill. I didn't know that. Interesting. Nice to put a name on that position. So, in any case, this is what we talked about. Rook takes d6 leads to a lost pawn endgame. Rook b1 lets black stay in a drawn, although not very simple, but a drawn rook endgame. So let's continue. I wanted to show you a few examples with minor pieces today, okay? Let's take our next example. This was played in a game with white Burdaliev and playing black Votova. I know black in this game. Johan Votova, grandmaster from Czech Republic. So what happened here is that black played the move knight e6. Very logical move, knight e6, trying to undermine white's defense of the b5 pawn. It's your move, guys. I would like to see how you react to this. How do you think white should continue? Please notice that in the game, white made a very bad choice and they lost the game at this very moment. But I'm pretty sure that you can do better. I will quiz you only for 4 moves, I think, this time, okay? 4 moves will be enough. Let's see how you react to this. We are slightly worse in this endgame. That's evident now. Black is more active and we have a weakness on b5. Yeah, if you play like that, Oski, I win a pawn, right? I take and I take. Yeah, you can play something like king c6 in the end. Okay, interesting beta chess and Richard. You played just like Burdaliev did in the game. So did Metsamortis. But that's not a good sign in this case. So did Fianchetto and Dada Apple. I'm very sorry. That's not what we should do in this position. Interesting by Young Jal and Freya. You were on the right track, trying to avoid the pawn endgame to all extents. But there are some cases where you should accept the pawn endgame. The trick is that you need to calculate a lot, and that's not so easy when you have only 1 minute and 15 seconds. I understand that. King Sam, congratulations. We have a winner here. And I would say that, yeah, for instance, Ararat, you must be very close also. I can't calculate. King e4, Ararat would scare me there, but I guess you just go king e2 and nothing happens. Yeah, I think your solution is okay also, Ararat. So random, congratulations, we have a second winner. King Sam, you were fastest. Please go ahead. How do we continue here with white pieces? So knight takes e6. In itself, it's not a difficult move. The interesting thing is that when we play that, we change the pawn structure a little. The way you can find this move, not to make this too complex, the way you can find this move is rather starting with a more evident move, bishop d3. Anyone would start looking at this, right? It looks more natural. But there was a big problem with this move. Anyone who knows exactly what's the problem with this, raise your hand. Somebody who knows. Sui random. I will take my chances and I will ask Sui random. Okay. Please go ahead, Sui. Why would bishop d3 be a bad mistake? I like students to show instead of myself everything. So look what happened now. That's the nasty move. That's the nasty move. Now we have a problem defending both our pawns. We can't do that. We would have to go for the pawn endgame. This is exactly what happened in the game. Look what happened now. This is interesting situation. Before we continue, yeah, wait, Sui, wait for me just one moment. So you could say even the tiniest of advantages can be decisive in pawn endgames, right? What's the tiny advantage that black has here? Can anyone tell me what's the tiny advantage? Better king, exactly. Black has the better king, but it's not that much. When I play king e3, you would say it's just marginally better king. Marginally. But it's enough to win the game. That would not happen. Yeah, it's not about, if you talk about these are not, so can you please stop? Who is making all these? Yeah, okay, sorry. What did I want to say? You add a pair of pieces here, and I don't think black has any chance of winning. Like, if you add a pair of knights, just for fun, let's say we add a pair of knights. We'll put the white knight on c3, and we'll put the black knight on c7, for instance. I would say here white has excellent chances of saving this game, because the knight can, at some stage, I can maybe do this, I trade these pawns, I get some counterplay and so on. But we don't have the knights on anymore, right? Or maybe you had a pair of rooks also. If you imagine we remove these knights and we put a pair of rooks somewhere. I don't know. I randomly put a pair of rooks like that. You will of course say that, hey, this depends a lot on who takes the open file. But okay, even if white gets like the open file, black can maybe activate the rook in some way. Or it's a rook endgame after all, right? There will be chances for a draw. White has more weaknesses. Yeah. Anyway, we have some comments in the chat. Doubled pawns don't matter when they can't be attacked. I will also say that doubled pawns are more seriously felt when there are minor pieces on the board, right? The minor pieces are good at attacking these, and not so much the rooks, perhaps. Anyway, back to our game. And this is what we were looking at. So Sui Random is explaining that if white plays the natural move bishop d3, they are lost in this endgame, Sui is saying. So, okay, Sui, let's check this very quickly. I play king e3. Why would black win this? f6, all right, like a waiting move. I don't want to play f4 and let black's king in, of course. So I would have to make a waiting move with the king, let's say like that. Okay, so at this stage, we have like two things we could look at. One is if white is completely passive. I play something like king e3. Yeah, how will you continue there, Sui? You didn't get the move order wrong, or it's okay, your move order, Sui? I'm starting to be a little nervous here. I think there was a misunderstanding, Sui. You wasted your waiting move, probably thinking that you should take back with the pawn. But that's not completely true. These moves like f6, they are extremely useful in pawn endgames, right? Waiting moves with the pawns are much more important in pawn endgames than in other types of endgames. We talked about this last time, right? Simply because all the other pieces are very good with losing a tempo and so on. But in the pawn endgame, we don't have such chances because very often the kings are busy doing something else. So the only pieces which can lose tempo are the pawns. So here black plays d5, and you would say strategically, exactly, preserve the tempo. Strategically, black's structure is a bit ugly, you would say here. Pawn islands and blah, blah, blah. Oh, I couldn't write that. They don't like the word ugly in the great place, Chessable Classroom, but they censor some words. So I'm just saying, strategically, this this doesn't look nice for black, but pawn endgame wise, it's winning, because pawn endgames have their own rules and principles, you would say, right? Something like that. So please remember, I think maybe we talked about this very briefly in the past. moves which are good in the end game can be, in the middle game. In the middle game can be disastrous in the end game. Does anyone know an example about that? A move which is terribly, which is very nice in the middle game, is terribly wrong in the end game? Have you ever seen an example like that, or no? Or you don't know exactly what I'm talking about, probably. Maybe. Good answer. Okay, I have an example. I can show you an example which is very famous, which I think I put in my endgame book also, if I'm not mistaken. Let me show you. If you give me just like one moment, I'll show it to you in a better way. Let's see, like that. All right, give me just one moment, and we will upload this. All right, here we go. So there was a player. Let me say, who was the strongest Polish player before Najdorf? Let's say who is good with chess history. Also an author of many. Oh, Rubinstein. No, but he was Rubinstein had passed away, I think, or something. Of many chess quotes. Author of many chess quotes. He said, for instance, "You never win a game by resigning," and things like that. Yeah, he would say all these smart things. He's also the Duda is the Tartakover, exactly, princess. Aha. Thanks, Brian. Excellent. So Tartakover, he was a brilliant player, but in this endgame, he got it all wrong. So what happened in this endgame? Well, when you see this pawn chain like that, he did not play f6. F6 is ugly, but it's probably better than what he played in the game. Yeah, exactly. You knew this, Can King Sam. He played g5 here. So this is a nice move if we had more pieces on the board. If you imagine that, I mean, we can add a few pieces if you like. Let's do that. We'll add a knight on c6. We'll add a knight on f3. Let's have a bishop on e7 and a bishop on e3, and let's put the rook on c8. And yeah, I don't know, where would I put this piece? The rook on d1 maybe. If you had a position like this, let's say like this, and black played g5, I think most of us would say, okay, interesting move. Maybe not necessarily the best move, but we can understand it. Black is trying to gain some space and maybe soften up white's pawn structure. If they take like that, maybe one day we can get the chance to attack this pawn. So it would be okay here. Break the pawn chain, exactly, a princess. But here, on the other hand, let's come back to Tartakover's game. Here he played e5. I mean, I understand his point, of course. Active move, we want to bring in the king and so on. But white is also playing. So do me a favor here, guys. Flip the board. Tell me exactly. You already answered. Aha, you're right. That's what happened in the game. White, we will copy tricky windmill here. That makes my work easier. Aha. You see what tricky windmill said? We can play g3, h4. Not g3 here, of course. That's what Tartakover wanted. He could take and try to bring the king closer. No, not at all. So what did white play here? And anyone who thinks they know the answer here? Anyone? I'll take my chances here. I'll pick one. Tricky windmill. Since this is a new user and you also said some smart things, you get the chance to show us here. Please go ahead, Tricky. How would you continue here? This move would be bad in a middle game, perhaps. No? Weak pawn on e5. But we don't have minor pieces and pieces which can attack that pawn. So it doesn't matter. Aha. King f3. Yeah, we don't play g3, of course, because in that case, black can enter now. So first we should make sure that black's king won't enter. Aha. The king would like to enter. Please don't play g4, because in that case, you can play h4, but you can't create a passed pawn. We want a pawn on the h file, of course. So king g4 was played in the game. And if I just wait here, Tricky, you would simply play exactly. And the rest is easy to understand, right? Outside passed pawns. Even that, outside passed pawns, not that, well, what could I say? Much less important, much less seriously felt in other endgames, no? In other endgames. But in this endgame, it's very heavily felt because there is only one defender, which is the king, right? So yeah, if I play like that, just so that everybody understands what's going on here. Black is going down because white will play h5, king h4, invade, and at some stage give up the pawn and take the pawns and so on. Tartakova tried f5, but okay. Thanks, Sui. Sorry, Tricky. Let us just make a quiz here, so I make sure that everybody actually understood this. Okay, just to make sure we all understood. You get exactly 20 seconds for this. Okay. Exactly. Yeah, everybody got this right. Yeah, you understand that we create the outside passed pawn, and in that way we win the game. So nice. Okay, we will pick one student here. I'll pick somebody in front of me. Jake, 2021. Please go ahead, Jake. How would you continue here with the white pieces? You can probably play multiple moves, but this looks like the nicest way of winning. The more to the right, I mean, the more distant the passed pawn, nicer, of course. Yeah, everybody understands this. You take my pawns and so on, and you win. So outside passed pawn, kind of bad in rook, and yeah, something like that, can King Sam. It all depends on which kind of endgame. So this was completely wrong. He should have played. Yeah, anyone, what would you play with the black pieces then instead of g5? Could you give me some recommendation? Yeah, I don't like f6, but maybe you're right. Maybe that's the best move. I think exactly. I think you should just bring up the king. I'm a little scared that if you go f6, I will just play king e3 and try to break with my king on that side. I don't know if that's possible. Maybe it's not possible. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you can defend like that. I can't calculate so quickly now, but I see some potential for white on this side. I guess you would like to have your king on c6 instead. So I think king f8 is the safest move for sure. And if white brings up the king, black will have to do the same thing now. I don't know. Maybe you can find this endgame in some book or something. You can have it explained, but I think black is defending in this way. Then, of course, you need to be careful with the bathtub, no? With the bathtub. Anyone wants the bathtub? Bathtub. How does the bathtub make sense in chess? Or you don't know the bathtub? It's a power structure, exactly. Where's the bathtub? In the bathroom, probably. No, I'm just joking. I'm saying that if white plays something like g4, it's a pawn structure, yeah. No, nobody's dumb here. No, it's okay. So black could maybe wait a little, something like that. But the moment white plays h4, they are just one move away from the bathtub. Then we need to be a little careful now. We could maybe play h5 ourselves, or we could play some other move. But the moment they play h5, now you need to be careful, because now they are threatening to win the game by g5. So here it's obligatory to take, like, right, and get this position. But if you ask me, it's nicer to play h5 ourselves, right? And no bathtub in this game. Yeah, we all understand bathtub. Yeah, exactly. In the Caro-Kann topic now. Caro-Kann topic. I hope you see what I mean. In the Caro-Kann, if you play the Caro-Kann, you can get this pawn structure quite often now. If you go to the, if you take the classical Caro-Kann that nobody plays anymore, or well, not so often. By the way, who invented this variation? What do you call this variation? Anyone? The Tartakova, exactly. So you see, here he comes again, Tartakova. He's the one who started with this business, which is so popular nowadays. But okay, back in other times, they would play bishop f5, and you would get this kind of pawn structure, right? So I'm just saying that in these positions, if you make a few moves here, randomly, let's say we play like this, and let's say black plays like that, and yeah, I'm just making a few moves here. Let's say black goes for the long castles setup, like that. And let's say white plays like queen e2, and at some stage they go knight e5. Yeah, I'm just like making this up a little, but I wanted you to see how the bathtub comes up, right? Something like that, and then you play knight e4, and then you play g4. And once you get to that position, try not to trade off all the pieces with black. That will be dangerous, no? If we just continue making random moves, something like that. If everything is traded here, it could be dangerous for black. If you take this position and you remove pieces like that, let's remove all the pieces just to make this very clear for everybody. And let's say for some reason both kings are busy on doing something on the king side. Let's say we're on the queen side. Let's say we ended up in this position. Okay, what would white play here? Anyone? Which would be a good plan for white? Aha, you're right, Santos. Okay, we bring up the user here. Santos, you were fastest. Raise your hand, please. Let's see here. Okay, Santos, please go ahead. How do you win here with the white pieces? G5, you see, careful with the bathtub. This is what happens when black is not reacting to white's plans. When you go for this structure, try to keep queens perhaps on the board, or rooks or something. Well, not with the king on a6, of course. But in any case, you see what I mean. Please continue, Santos. Yeah, f5. Exactly. We all understand this. If I take like that, I have to taste the white past h pawn, right? And if I play like that, I have to taste the white past e pawn instead. Now you see why I put the king deliberately on a6, right? Else my whole point would fail here. But yeah, you see what I mean, right? So yeah, that's about the bathtub. Now, careful about that. But in Tartakover's case, this would not have happened because he would have played. If he noticed this risk with playing g5, then he would have played at the right moment. He would have played h5 instead. Okay, I think we're done with this and we should go back to what we were looking at. Never drown in the bathtub, exactly. We are going back now to what we were looking at. We were looking at this one, right? So yeah, sorry about drifting away a little from the topic. We were talking about the move. Yeah, anyone, what did black play here? Anyone remembers? What did black play? The Czech grandmaster, what was his move here with the white pieces? Or nobody remembers? Oh, sorry. Mezza Mortis. Please go ahead, Mezza Mortis. Show us the first few moves here. What happened? What did black play? Knight e6, challenging white. How to defend this pawn. Bishop d3 was played in the game. Burdaliev did not notice the danger here. They took, and here comes the star move, of course. Knight f5. Black understands that they can reach a pawn endgame where their more active king will give them good winning chances. Actually, not only that, they're winning the game here. So, Sui Random, yeah, you were the one showing this. Are you still around, Sui? You can raise your hand, Sui. I didn't want to take away the fun from Sui Random, if you're still around. Or maybe Sui is not. Yeah, Sui is here. All right. Thanks to Mezza Mortis for helping us out with the first move. So g5 was played. We can see that this time Sui Random is not using up their waiting moves. What can I play here? I'll wait myself. I don't have so many choices. And this is kind of easy to win with black, right? We can go h4. I can try king g king over, for instance. But we reach an interesting situation here. Black can win the game later by using the king for the waiting moves, right, Sui? Oh, it's not scrolling on my side. I don't see the comments. Yeah, careful. Somebody is talking badly in the chat. Yeah, what's your language, please? Yeah, please go ahead, Sui. We were waiting for you. You're not moving. Yeah, I'm just going to wait. No, I'm just going to keep my king here. So, should I? Yeah, you can also wait. Yeah, just to show who's the boss. All right. I will also wait. Yeah, we are waiting, Sui. Exactly. Now, please notice what happens here. Now we win a tempo with a king like that. What I was thinking that you would play, Sui, was something like this and then play king f5. This amounts to the same thing, right? We make the waiting move with a king, which means that we keep this for later. It would be a gross mistake to play f6 because then white could play f4 and the tempi are now in white's favor. But we can do Sui's line. Yeah, king h5 and I play king g2 and now takes king g5. Yeah, please continue, Sui. Let's finish this off. Yeah, what do you want me to play? Yeah, I also love playing these endgames, Sarthak. Who doesn't? This has happened so many times in practice. Yeah, one step or two steps in this case, it makes no difference. Black is winning. So something like that was the game. This was the tragic outcome of this game. As you can see, black will win this game by taking the pawn in the end and so on. So yeah, back to business. Who was it who got it right? I don't remember anymore. I had somebody with a white pawn here. Who had a white pawn? Pop Fisher, no. Who had a white pawn? Anyone remembers? Who? Count King Sam. All right, Count King Sam, raise your hand, please. And you can show us now. What should white have done instead? Exactly. White should take first. Black can take with the king also, but I don't think that is a big big difference. Now, if I take with the king and I play knight f5, now it's very much different. Now it's a different pawn structure. Since white has this pawn on c3, anyone, can you tell me in a few words difference with the pawn on c3. Anyone with a pawn on c3 instead of d4? Yeah, like if I go g5, it's almost suicide, right? It's suicide. Exactly, Ararat. That's, I think, the clearest difference. We can go for pawn break now, or we are probably winning. Or king d4 also very interesting. Yeah, I can't calculate this exactly. Yeah, something like that, right? But else you could also play c4, and I think you're winning by force now. c5 is coming. You can see that white's king can go inside the square if black pushes a4. We're inside the square, right? I would go to this square so I don't get checked when I do my pawn break, right? This has to be winning for white, right? Black can come back, but in the very worst case, we could just get a protected pass pawn, and we go and take this pawn. And of course, we don't let them do that because we will play f4. Block f5 with f4. Exactly, tricky windmill. You're reading my mind. Aha. So that's the big difference here. I could take with the f pawn instead if I want to, but the difference will not be that big, right? Please continue. King 7, exactly. Bishop d3. And yeah, well, I mean, we can play many moves with black. We could play something like e5 maybe. You will probably bring your king close, or maybe you can break with f4 at some stage, try to put the king on d4. This is something you need to be careful about, right? The moment you play c4, you're giving me the pass pawn. But you could probably wait a little here, right? You could wait a little. If nothing else, yeah, keep the bishop and wait for black to do something also. While if I go for the more critical knight f5, it doesn't really pay off either. Aha, we can take and yeah, we can bring up the king. Should be okay for black, for white. Sorry, e5 for instance. Yeah, we said that g5 was out of the question. I'm just trying to play like in the other line, but this is another suicide attempt, right? Suicide attempt. We know it by now. c4, c5, and yeah, probably white is winning. So black would have to play something else. We could play the same move e5 maybe, and white could play something like f4. Aha, I think so. And it's hard to believe that black can win this game. If I take and king g4, I guess there is c4 again. I'm not sure though about it by f4. Yeah, little scary, no? Are you completely sure it works? If I take and... Yeah, maybe black can lose also. Yeah, dangerous now for both players. Maybe black should just go back with the king. If I play like this, I'm afraid that white wins with c4 and c5. e4 maybe also. Yeah, e4 you could try. But I think in that case, white was going to play king d4. And if king g4... But wait a little. This is scary for white, right? This is not correct for white, I think. Black is winning now, or no? Or I'm okay, maybe I'm wrong then. I just thought you could take and you have these two guys. Wow. My head is spinning. What's going on here? Yeah, I think black's winning. I would also think so. Looks scary, no? Or at least you get some queen endgame where black is more active and so on. I mean, once you get the queen ending, black's king is very well placed also. So I wouldn't play like that. Oh, you want to check that endgame? No, I don't think we should check that endgame. So I think the best you can do here is just to wait. If you ask me, wait here, king e2 or maybe king f2. And I don't think black can really progress in this game. Maybe you can come back with the king, and who knows who is better now, and so on. King e5 maybe. Well, what's going on here? Anyone who understands this? What are we doing? Are we playing g4 maybe? Yeah, now it gets very tricky. I think so, tricky. Windmill, making honor to your name. I don't know what's going on here. It's going to be a nervous game for both players, I think, at this stage. E takes f3, says Sui random. E takes f3, and I take on h5, and I take on f3. And Sui wanted to play d4. Is that what you wanted, Sui? But then I go c4, or no? I don't know what's... Yeah, this looks scary for black, right? Or what are we missing? King d6. Oh, I see your point. Maybe I can do this tricky move. Now it gets even more tricky. Or wait a little. Why would I do that, by the way? Why don't I play king e4 and king d3? I guess it ends in a draw in the end, right? You play like that, and I take, and I push, and it's gonna be a draw, right? So, do you agree or no? Black queens with check, but white also queens. F takes e4. It looks like F takes e4 and then c4, not g4. F takes e4 and then c4, not g4. C4. Oh, Zugzwang coming up, right? This looks like mutual Zugzwang. The one to move loses, or something like that. I see your point, Santos. Extremely clever point. You see what happened. Santos explained this. Yeah, exactly. Extremely clever thinking. You see, it was dangerous for Black to play this move E4. Or what was the dangerous move? But no, maybe here they should have taken instead, perhaps, and played something like that. But I don't know. Still, I feel like White is pushing now in this endgame. Yeah, who knows what happens here? But I think we can agree that this is way better than the game. Maybe Black should also wait then. Maybe both sides should wait here. So, okay, I think we got the main message here in this endgame, right? Black again has like a potentially more active king when they play the move knight e6. White should be very careful. Yeah, thanks, so King Sam, who is moving the pieces. White should be very careful entering this endgame because if you allow Black to reach a pawn endgame with this pawn structure, yeah, like dead structure for White, right? No dynamics. Then we might very well be lost. Minefield, exactly. Okay, I think it's time to move on now. We saw this endgame, and I wanted to show you another endgame which was played more recently and also by a more famous player, I dare to say, which shows that even very, very strong players, 2,700 players, can also err in these in such situations. No, so if you get it wrong, don't worry. Other players, presumably stronger than you or higher rated than you at least, they will also make such mistakes. Okay, you don't need to be Richard Rappert to find his next move. Mezza Mortis already found it. Aha, that's right. They play e4, of course. So we can easily say that White's better here, but is it enough to win, you would ask? Yeah, you don't have to answer this question. No, it's not something we can ask ourselves. All right, guys, you're sitting here with the black pieces. You're Jordan van Forest, and you have to make a little choice here in this position. So let's see who can get it right. If you get it right, then you actually improve upon what happened in this game. Okay, I'll ask you only for 3 moves, I think, but you get 1 minute only. Okay, so not easy. Oh, wow, Kind King Sam, either you know this game, you're a grandmaster, higher rated than 2700, or you're having some kind of extra help here, because that's too fast. But okay, we have more winners. RKDK, HTI, Mezza Mortis, and Oski, you all got it right. Congratulations. Interesting move by Tricky and Sui and Zach Pan and Santos Bryan. I haven't even seen that move, to be honest with you. Looks very interesting, yeah. What happens if you play like that? I have to think about that a little. Should I grab some space with e5 maybe? You go back with the king. I like that move. Yeah, very active. Might very well be a good choice, no? What would I play in that case? Yeah. Okay, maybe that's a good alternative then. But many of you played in the way that I was expecting. I'll pick a student here. RKDK Chess, please raise your hand. No, I don't think so either, Tricky. RKDK, please go ahead. What was your choice here? A crystal clear path to the win is taking on e4. Looks extremely dangerous because look at this position. Black is getting Zugzwang. If you ask me, Jordan van Forest was checking this and he said, I don't like it. You can see it for yourself. Black makes a waiting move, White makes a waiting move, Black waits a waiting move, and White could make another waiting move, and at the very end, what would White play here? Anyone? Exactly, Kind King Sam, you're right. Aha, Sarthak, you got it, f5. I think that's how it works, right? Black would have to play e5. This wins, right? Sarthak, you can take it from here. Please go ahead, Sarthak. How do you win from this point, Sarthak? You would win if it was Black to move, but it's your turn, unfortunately. This is something I have learned a little also by studying pawn endgames. Sometimes it can be very useful to provoke a move like h5. If the pawn was still on h7, maybe Black could make a draw by king e7, right? Taking the opposition. But once you have pushed the pawn, it can be exposed, right? You can see that now Sarthak is threatening king f5, and if I go king g6, I'm in bad shape anyway. No, White's plan is extremely simple: go and take the pawn and then just move over. So King d4 is simpler. Oh, you're probably right, Metza Mortis. This is probably simpler. Yeah, you don't need to calculate this stuff. I see what you mean. You can play like that. I agree 100%, Metza Mortis. That's way more instructive. No extra calculation and so on. So if you ask me, this is maybe one of the variations that troubled Van Forest during the game. But as everybody noticed here, among them RKDK, Black is of course not taking. We have this topic trading on our terms. Oh, so somebody's pasting the variation here. Maybe you should run the class instead, Oski, since you like to paste solutions in the chat and so on. King e7, that's the right move. White can, of course, stay in the knight game, play some move like knight c5 or something, but Black should be okay here. Oh, knight e5 is also an option at some stage. But if they go for knight takes f6, which is the first thing we should check, we can see that now things are a bit different. If we have the king on this side of the pawn, they can't push f5 anymore. And we are also not running out of waiting moves, right? If I play something like that, for instance. Exactly. And as you can see, now it's even Black who gets like a slight advantage. But yeah, it won't be enough to win. The question, should we go e5 or should we go king f5? e5 is good also, right? What do you think? Is that a good move? Yeah, it's a losing move, right? Don't do that. There we go again, trading on our terms, right? You see, we can decide if we should trade the pawns on f4 or on e5. Of course, we prefer to trade them like that. Yeah, that would be a tragic mistake now. So please don't play that thinking that your opponent will take. That's like wishful thinking. Of course, king f5 instead. And then pawn moves needs extra thought. I agree. And we end up in the draw. Yeah, the reason why I didn't quiz you for more moves here was that there were so many ways for Black to make a draw here. I have a question. Which is the worst pawn move here? Is there any bad pawn move in this position? No, e5. Yeah, sorry. Of course, e5 is the worst. But from the other moves, okay, guys. Yeah, b5 and a5. Okay, silly question from me. Sorry, I underestimated. Yeah. So, okay. I was thinking about 1, 2, 3, 4. From these 4 moves, I think only one is bad. H5 is the move you must not play. Why is H5 wrong? It's like Suis F6, right? We're wasting up. We're using up exactly Nicole and Happy Pawn. We're using up our reserve moves, right? That's what we saw in Suis example now. So White would suddenly win the game because they will wait for Black to commit, as you can see, right? And the king will enter. So this can be easily solved by just playing h6 instead, right? Or b6 or a6. But please don't play h5. Gaining space. Yeah, that's the Stockfish move, right? But not in the pawn endgame. Not even Stockfish would, of course, play h5 because we know that every tempo counts here. Yeah, hi, Greg. Good to see you. Great to have Greg Shahadi with us here, checking these interesting pawn endgames. So back to the initial position. Richard Rapport played e4. Van Forest in the game, he played instead here. He had a bad moment and played knight d7. This was not a good idea. White took on h7 and they went on to win this knight endgame without much difficulty. The game continued like that. e5, pawn takes, knight takes, e takes f5, and yeah, White later on managed to win the game thanks to their passed pawns. However, many of you wanted to say here the move knight h5. Yeah, I couldn't really figure this out. Looks like a really good move. I guess maybe e5 and I would then try to how do you say, maneuver my knight. Maybe, no? Tricky Windmill says h6. Sui Random also says h6. So you're completely agreeing on that. Yeah, the knight has to go back. And what did you want to do next? You want to send the knight in this direction? Oh, I see. Maybe I should try to dominate your knight and then kick you or something. It's funny, but it looks a little like the Tartakova endgame that we looked at, right? I'm not sure about this exact situation. No, seems to me that White is still pushing in this endgame, but it might be a draw though. Yeah, I would kick the knight and then I would try to send my knight. Oh, I understand. You want to play h. Wait a little here. If I go h4, how is your knight coming back? Whoever said that. That's like your own goal, right? The knight cannot come back anymore. So knight e7 should probably be played instead. But looks a little depressing, windmill, if you play like that, in my opinion. No, maybe knight e4, try to create some weakness on that side. You have to play knight e8, maybe. Maybe I can try to go on this side. I don't know. I wouldn't like facing Magnus Carlsen, for instance, in this endgame, but it could be okay, though. It could be okay, of course. Maybe you can send a knight in this direction and create counterplay. Yeah, Black can probably hold, but I think, yeah, this would be a good second option, though. But the first option, I think it's actually like some of you were saying, take and come back with the king and get ready to take on f6. So, yeah, do we agree on that, or what do you think? All clear? Second option a little harder, yeah, but way better than the game. Okay, let's continue. Let's take another knight endgame. This is another knight endgame which was played in the Bundesliga some years ago. So this is the position. Brudigam with white and Georgiadis with the black pieces. So yeah, anyone, tell me if you, tell me two candidate moves with white, please. Okay. Knight e3, not knight f4. Okay, interesting. I think we're already on the right track, but you have to admit it's a candidate move, right? Knight f4, it's a candidate move. So anyone, can you tell me without the quiz what happens after knight f4? Please use verbal explanations. Okay, what happens at the very end? If white goes knight f4, you're sitting with the white pieces, you notice the move knight f4. Could we go for a pawn game? Minefield is bad for white. I like that expression, RKDK. Can anyone tell me what happens at the end of the day after knight f4? Black wins the pawn game because there's a queen exchange and we eat the b3 pawn. Interesting. Is it possible to think that it could be an even better scenario? Black gets queen g2, says Sui Random. I like that theory. Does anyone understand what Sui is saying? Oski chess. All right, Oski, you will have the honor. Show us, please, Oski. How do you beat me after knight f4? This is what happened in the game. Brodigam played knight f4. Brodigam, sorry, bad pronunciation. Please go ahead, Oski. You're sitting. Oh, I gave it to Jong Jiao. Very sorry. Maybe because Jong Jiao raised her hand. That's my wild guess. Aha. We take. White enter the minefield, and look what happened now. White was probably in time travel and just calculated that. All right, I'll get out of the way and I will queen. And they did queen in the game. Yeah, it happened. He was in time travel. Yeah, don't be too harsh. No. Here you can see windmill that we could, of course, stick to your plan and go and take the pawn. But it's even nicer if we take a queen instead, right? So that's what happened in the game. Black resigned because they lost the queen in the end. So terrible mistake. What should we have played instead? Oh, I mean king g6 line. We changed queen. I don't understand anymore. Oh, I think I understand what you mean now. If white doesn't take the pawn. No, white resigned, not black. We exchanged queens and... Oh, I'm being very stupid. Of course, you could go this. No, but you can't go that way, right? Now you're not queening anymore. You need to go back if you want to steal a tempo, right? So you don't have that choice, I think. You have to play this to force me to play that. And then then we get this situation. Yeah, white fell into this in the game, but they were probably in time trouble. So what should white have played instead? All right, I'll quiz you. Let's see who can get it right. Beware that there are a few different solutions. So yeah, we will have to see which solution you like the most here. But they're all okay. We'll take one of them, all right? Or should I take the most flashy one? Yeah, we will do the flashy one, all right? You'll have to do the flashy solution, which is more fun also. So let's see. Remember that knights are very powerful pieces, okay? Knights are very powerful pieces. But there are tons of ways to make a draw, but we will do one of them, okay? You get 1 minute here. Quiz is starting now, Nicole. Sorry to keep you waiting. All right, young Johan and Freya, you can play like that. I will play king e5, I think. King e5. Then you have to take on h5 and I take on b3. That's for, yeah, it's okay. Yugoslavian, Mecha, Skilled, Brian, and Fianchetto. It's also possible to play like that. As I told you, there are multiple ways of making a draw in this endgame. It's not the only way. Knight takes h5, I think it's very risky, but I might be wrong. Yeah, maybe that works also. Okay, perfect. Those of you who said you can just transpose, I forgot about that. Yeah, excellent point. So we have many winners and nobody actually used my variation. But that's not the problem. We will pick one student here. We can pick somebody who said knight takes h5. Nicole, maybe you can do it. All right, Nicole, you can show us what was your plan. So we stay in the knight endgame. We're going to be pawn down, but it's healthier than playing the other endgame. So, all right, I'll go for my... I need to take something, right? Else you're just getting back your pawn. Yeah, this is also working, by the way. King e3 is working. To me, it's less intuitive, but in a way you can understand it. If you say to yourself that I will take this pawn, and then I will use the king to stop the a pawn, you could play like that. But there were some tricky variations here, I remember. Like this one, for instance. King e5, knight takes h5. Is this how it went, this tricky line? We take on b3. We go back with the knight, right? I have a question here. I have a question for everybody. White plays h5. Now we're back in the territory, the minefield again. So with minefield thinking, what should black play here? Yeah, I think I took the flashy solution. Exactly, kind king salmon, requiz. You're right. Okay, requiz. You get the black pieces here. Requiz is here. Please go ahead, requiz. Knight e6. So unfortunately, I cannot trade into the minefield now. I'm lost if I play like this. Just to make sure we understand this together. The pawns are too far away from each other, right? If I try something like that, requiz will definitely not take the pawn. Requiz will run with that pawn. I lose by 1 tempo. Okay, so I will have to stay out of the minefield. So I'll tell you now, let's flip the board again. When I was looking at this position, okay, I have like 2 questions here. Only one knight move makes a draw. Okay. Anyone would like to guess which is the best knight move? How many knight moves do you have? Knight e3, knight e2, knight e2, knight h3, knight g6. You have 5. Yeah, you have 5. Yeah, Mecha Mortis is right. Yeah, okay, Mecha Mortis. But I thought maybe somebody else. Very easy. Wow. That's another 2700 Grandmaster then who says it's very easy. Okay, Mecha Mortis. Don't forget, we will come back to you, Nicole, after this. Knight e2, only move to make a draw. All right, Mecha, explain that to us. Why was that the only move to make a draw? Very illogical, don't you think? Put the knight down. But Mecha is right. It's the only move against all the other knight moves. Black wins by king f6 and going and taking this pawn. Only this move makes a draw. So, oh, sorry, I'm not seeing the chat. And I'm 2500. Okay, so you see, I was 2500. I don't think that's my real strength anymore. And I could not understand this. Yeah, h6, exactly. Now you understand? Everybody understands? That's the reason. How interesting now? How interesting. You have this position, the chess engine will tell you that only 92 makes a draw. How is that possible? That's when you need to start comparing things. So what do? You ask it for the bad move. What happens then? And it says king f6. What do you do next? You play the same move against the good move. And then it will tell you the difference, right? But if you don't do that, digging in the variations, it's going to be difficult to find a solution. So yeah, this is very hard to see in the game, I think. We'll eliminate the last pawn. So I just wanted to tell you that it's possible to play also king e3, but it lets black also play king e5. So king f4, we're back to Nicole. Please, Nicole, come back to us and show us the rest of the story here. Knight takes b3. And I think all the captures were okay. Yeah, but this is the nicest one. It's the flashy one. Knight takes h5. You can also take here first and get into the same variation. So they say knights are mysterious pieces in the endgame. Please continue, Nicole. How does this work? We get one last example. Yeah, we get one last example. Aha, look what happened here. Looks like black is queening, but what will white do here? Knights are tricky pieces. Yeah, you can go that way also. Sure, you can go that way. Aha, we're just back on time. We're just back on time. Sending the knight to 8-2. Once you're on 8-2, it will take black considerable time to untangle, and we will run with the h pawn, right? Something like that. I could, of course, play knight c5 also. I could play knight c5. Yeah, everybody understands it will take black some time to fix this. In the meantime, we will run with the pawn. I could try knight c5 to make Nicole a little nervous, but in that case, Nicole, of course, you could just play. Well, the pawns are almost on the same rank, right? So, yeah, exactly. And we get this funny endgame with queen and knight versus queen and knight, but most likely it's gonna be a draw. So that's a perfectly fine solution. But you could also play in the other way, which I think it's kind of natural also to take like that and then bring back the king. And it's still a little tricky, but we should be able to make a draw here. Anyway, I just want you to see that maybe two things here. Now, one, of course, as always, careful with the pawn endgame. Knight f4, terrible mistake. We ended up facing this skewer in the end. And secondly, that there are many chances in knight endgames. They are extremely tricky by nature. And even if you lose this pawn and it appeared as if it was very, very far away, you're actually just in time to catch the pawn with knight f6 or knight e3, and you're just in time. So, yeah, and also, like we were saying about knight forks. Now, knight forks are very important. So in this other variation, which I thought was entertaining, in this variation, when black went back with a knight, trying to trade knights, interestingly enough, from all the moves here, should I quiz you on this? I think I will quiz you just to make sure that you and me were on the same page here. If you're fast learners or not. Let's see. But you get only 20 seconds. Meanwhile, I'll bring up the last example, okay? Bring up the last example. So, this is our last example. So, good work by Zakpan, John Sam, Chesot, Canting Sam, Ararat, Oski, Santos, Arcadicero, Ninja, Metza Mortis, Freya, Brian, Young GL. Aha, excellent work. Please go ahead, Brian. You can show us here how should white, where should white move the knight to in this tricky endgame. Extremely illogical move at first sight, at least for me, this move, knight g2. But it's the only way to face this threat of king f6 and king g6, because we can then fork them in the end, right, Brian? h6, knight f8, knight f4. Exactly, Ryan. Yeah, thanks. Perfect. That's what we were saying. I guess if f4, in that case, white's king is getting closer, and I think so at least. Or wait a little. It's not this crazy endgame. No, this can never work, right? I got a little confused now. Anyone who understands this? Could we just take the pawn and... Oh, I should look in the chat. Knight takes a4 draw, says Santos. Okay, I think so too. This is one of those weird endgames where if black's knight stays over here, we just move over and they cannot progress, right? Only because it's a rook pawn now, right? Yeah, black cannot, but it's a loss. Oh, really tricky. Sorry, my calculation is not good enough. How do you win this with black then? I wonder. Or should I maybe play? Should I play h? I should probably play this first, right? So that you can't steal tempi, right? Knight e5. Oh, what did we miss? Knight e5, king d3. Oh, I see. Sorry. Very clever. You send the knight in the other way. Of course. I didn't see that. Very nice. Defending the knight from behind so that it can never be taken. Aha. We assign the tasks in a different way, right? The king should take care of the h-pawn and the knight should defend. Very nice. So what's the story then here? I can't go like that, right? It's the same thing, I think. Yeah, it's the same thing. So it has to be some king move first, like king f3 first, I suppose. I guess the h-pawn is too strong, simply, no? The h-pawn is too strong for white to lose this game. Is that correct? Even if it looks a little scary. I guess you just go like h6 and you deflect them in the end or something. Yeah, I don't know. Something like that, maybe? Does that sound like reasonable? We can make a draw here in some way. a5. Wow, I would be nervous in this position. I don't like it for white. Is it wrong? I don't know. I haven't looked at this, so anyone who is very clever can tell me. Uh, the a pawn is very strong. Yeah, I certainly agree with you. Wow. King f3, draw. Yeah, certainly two results. Certainly two results. Yeah, what a pity we cannot play like that. But yeah, we saw this beautiful idea by Windmill. King d3, we go in the different direction. If this, probably the pawn just gets exposed, right? So what will black play? Maybe I run with this pawn. You somehow go with the king that side and you deal with this pawn. Yeah, this move I can actually play, right, if I want to. F3, I have knight e1. Are we getting closer? I think we're getting closer, or no? We're very close to sacking on f4 and taking the pawn. Or what did I miss here? Yeah, exactly. Tricky. It's in the game situation. It's very hard to play these endgames. I like this move. I think that's the right move, even if some people are saying it's bad. please don't do that if you're playing white. So that's the reason why rook f5 is wrong, of course. And as for all the other moves, there is unfortunately no good move. In the game, she played h3, letting black carry out the plan that we described. So here you have some kind of exception where actually the rook endgame, it's not a blessing for the weaker player. This is how the game ended, and you can see that the placement of the rook is what matters here, right? If it was the other way around, white could probably make a draw. I'm pretty sure that if you flip the board and you put the rooks in the opposite way, white should have excellent drawing chances here, right? Counter attack on this pawn maybe, or something like that. And hide the king, of course, from the checks once they play like that. I think you would have to hide and so on, right? But you could make a draw in this way maybe. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I'm seeing something wrong, but I think there should be good drawing chances here, but not in the situation that we have here in our game. No, in our game it's impossible to play like that. Sorry. Oh, I put the king on the wrong side. Yeah, king h5 then. You're right. Sorry about that. But so yeah, that's what she played in the game, h3, and black continued with her plan. But with this very sneaky move. Should we do it again or no? You did it already, right? King here and rook f6 going for the rook endgame. There were no other pawn endgame. There were no other good move here. King f3, by the way. What would black play in that case? Anyone? Of course. Now we do it. Now we're back in the danger zone. Yeah, but this is very evident. No, this is very evident. Of course. And you could do the same trick again. So no good move left. No good move left in this example, I guess. Yeah. Rook f3. Can I play that? Not really now. You could just stick to the topic with a4 and rook b5. Bonus example, but I'm always going over the time. Okay, very last example then. Yeah, this one is the last, okay? Very last example. Just to show you one endgame blunder. This is really a blunder. A question, in this game between Isan Zulov and Ter Sahakian, black played king d6. Okay, last one. Where should white not put the knight except the obvious bad squares? Exactly. Don't go to e4. Yeah, everybody saw this. Let's pick one student here. Run Ninja, you will show us. Please raise your hand, Run Ninja. You have found the solution. Or I'll pick somebody else then. Chess Crusher, please go ahead. Chess Crusher, what happens if I go knight e4? This is what black played in the game. Look at white, sorry. This kind of mistakes, how they happen in practice now. It's crazy now. You see bishop c5, and the Armenian grandmaster won this game without much difficulty, right? So careful about that, guys. Careful about that. Remember, what might look like a good move strategically in the middle game and so on, take his bishop pair and blah, blah, blah. It could be a decisive mistake in the end game. Any other square of like the normal squares would be better, right? But please don't put the knight on e4. Knight a6 is probably bad also. I don't know, but I can come back, right? Why would this lose, knight a6? Wait a little. Oh, because it got trapped, you mean? Okay. Makes perfect sense, yeah. Don't go to a6 either, but keep it like that and stay in the safer minor piece endgame. All right, guys, I think that's it for today. Thanks, everybody who attended. Thanks to chess.com, to Chess Dojo. Thanks to USCS and Greg Shahadi and to Chessable. Thanks, everybody. See you next week then. Thanks. Bye-bye.